Every project above OpenClaw on GitHub's all-time star chart. Linux, Vue, JS, React, Next.js. Took over a decade to get there. OpenClaw got there in 4 months. So what is it? What did one burned-out Austrian programmer build in his spare time that broke the internet? Here's the short answer. ChatGPT is the world's smartest person who never leaves their desk. You can ask it anything. It'll give you a brilliant answer. But it can't do anything. It can't send the email. It can't update the ticket. It can't set the reminder. It just talks. OpenClaw gets up from the desk and actually does the work. That's the difference. And that difference is why 247,000 developers starred this thing in 4 months. Let's get into it. To understand OpenClaw, you need to understand the guy who built it. Peter Steinberger is an Austrian developer who spent years in Silicon Valley building PSPDF-Kit, a PDF framework that ended up running on over 1 billion devices. If you've ever opened a PDF in an Apple app or Dropbox, you've probably used his code without knowing it. In 2023, he sold the company, reported exit, about 100 million euros. And then he just stopped. He described it in his own words on the Lex Fridman podcast. He said, "And I love this. I felt like Austin Powers where they sucked the mojo out. I couldn't get code out anymore. I was just staring and feeling empty." So he booked a one-way ticket to Madrid and disappeared. 3 months later, April 2025, something clicked. He started building a Twitter analysis tool. And he realized AI had completely changed. Not incrementally, fundamentally. He called it a paradigm shift. He wanted a personal AI agent that could actually do things for him. Something that lived on his machine, plugged into his messaging apps, and could act autonomously on his behalf. He looked around. Nothing like that existed. So he built it. I was annoyed that it didn't exist. So I just prompted it into existence. This was, by his count, his 44th AI-related project since 2009. The difference was, this one hit. It launched in November 2025 as ClawBot, named after his personal AI assistant he called Claude, which was itself a play on Claude the model. Then Anthropic sent a trademark concern. So he renamed it Moltbot, keeping with a lobster shedding theme. Then, 3 days later, he admitted Moltbot never quite rolled off the tongue and landed on OpenClaw. By the time they'd settled on the final name, the thing had already gone viral. Within weeks, the GitHub star count was climbing faster than anything anyone had seen. On February 14th of this year, Sam Altman announced that Steinberger was joining OpenAI, and that the project would be moved to an open-source foundation. Altman called him, and I'm quoting directly, a genius with a lot of amazing ideas. Not a bad arc. Burnout in Madrid to OpenAI in 9 months. So what actually is OpenClaw? Let's break down how it works. And I promise I'll keep this human. Think of OpenClaw as having 6 parts. You don't need to memorize all of them. Just follow the logic. 1. The gateway. This is the front door. It's a single process that runs on your machine and connects to your messaging apps simultaneously. WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord, iMessage. It plugs into all of them. And here's what's clever. Instead of building yet another proprietary chat interface, OpenClaw meets you where you already are. You just message it, like texting a friend. 2. The brain. OpenClaw is model agnostic. That means you can use Claude, GPT-4, Gemini, DeepSeek, or even run local models like Llama. You can swap models per task. Right from Telegram. Fast cheap model for summaries. Heavy reasoning model for complex work. You're in control. 3. The hands. And this is the one that changes everything. It's called the Pi agent. It lets the language model write, save, and execute code directly on your system. Think about what that means. You tell the agent, set up my Gmail. Instead of walking you through a settings menu, the agent writes the integration script itself, deploys it, runs it. If you give a language model the ability to write and run its own code, it can theoretically integrate with anything. As the Hello PM team put it in their masterclass, before OpenClaw, if you wanted an LLM to do something in the real world, a developer had to write the integration code. OpenClaw flips that. It gives the LLM the ability to write, save, and execute code. The LLM becomes the developer. 4. Memory. Your OpenClaw agent has a persistent memory system made up of simple markdown files. There's a soul.md that defines the agent's personality and rules, a memory.md for long-term context, daily logs for recent stuff, and a user.md for your preferences. No black box vector database. Just files. You can read them, edit them, version control them. It's memory you can actually see. 5. Heartbeat and cron. This is what separates an AI agent from a chatbot. Every 30 minutes, your agent wakes up, checks its files, and asks, is there anything I should be doing right now? You can also schedule specific tasks. Morning news digest, weekly project summary, whatever. The agent doesn't wait to be asked. It's proactive. 6. Skills. Skills are capabilities you give your agent. They live at ClawHub.ai, a community marketplace, web search, browser control, calendar management, home automation. You can install them in seconds. And if a skill doesn't exist, you can ask your agent to create one. In natural language, it'll write the skill file itself. Put all 6 of those together and you get something genuinely different from anything that existed before. Let me walk you through what this actually looks like in practice. You open Telegram. You message your agent. Set up a morning briefing. Every day at 8 a.m. Give me the weather, top 3 news stories, and anything urgent in my email. The agent responds, confirms it understood, and asks for your location and email access if it doesn't have it. You give the credentials once. It configures the schedule. Done. The next morning at 8 a.m. Without you doing anything, your phone buzzes. Weather. Clear. 12 degrees. Top stories. 3 bullets. Email. 1 flagged thread from your client that looks time sensitive. You didn't write a line of code. You didn't configure a workflow. You just described what you wanted. Now here's a more interesting one. You're out for a walk. You WhatsApp your agent. I need to prepare for my 3 p.m. call with the design team. Summarize the last 2 weeks of Slack. Pull the open Figma comments. And draft 3 agenda points. The agent goes to work. It reads the Slack history through its integration. Pulls the Figma comments via browser automation. Synthesizes everything. 30 seconds later, you get a clean draft back. Right there in WhatsApp. Your walk isn't interrupted. The prep is done. And the kicker, OpenClaw supports 25+ messaging channels. WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord, iMessage, Signal, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Matrix, IRC, Line. If you use it, OpenClaw probably works with it. Setup, by the way, is 5 commands in terminal. Node 22. 1 API key. Under 5 minutes. Now let's be honest about where OpenClaw sits relative to everything else. Versus ChatGPT or Claude.ai. These are incredible tools. I use them every day. But they're conversational. They talk. They don't act. You can't ask ChatGPT to set up a recurring task, maintain memory of your preferences, or execute something while you're away. OpenClaw can do all of those things. Versus AutoGPT. AutoGPT was the original autonomous agent experiment and it was genuinely exciting. But it's Python-based, historically prone to getting stuck in loops, and burns through API tokens fast. It's more research tool than personal assistant. OpenClaw is production grade. It's meant to run 24/7 on your machine and actually be useful. Versus CrewAI. CrewAI is excellent if you're building complex multi-agent pipelines for a dev team. It's designed for engineers. OpenClaw is designed for people. You don't need to write Python to configure it. Versus LangGraph. LangGraph is developer infrastructure. It's the engine room. Great for sophisticated graph-based agent logic. But you're not going to sit down and have it send your emails. It's not for end users at all. Versus N8N or Make. Automation tools like N8N and Make are powerful, but they require you to configure every integration explicitly. Nodes. API keys. Test runs. OpenClaw merges intelligence with automation. The language model understands what you need, walks you through the credential setup, and then configures itself. The GitHub star count tells part of the story. But the more important story is who is using it. Developers. Yes. But also product managers, writers, and researchers who want an agent they can actually talk to. Here's where I have to be straight with you. Because this tool is powerful. And powerful tools have sharp edges. OpenClaw runs on your machine with broad permissions. File system. Terminal. Sometimes root access depending on how you configure it. That's a lot of trust to give an AI system. CrowdStrike published a full blog post warning enterprise security teams about OpenClaw risks. Cisco's AI security team found a third-party skill that was exfiltrating data without the user realizing it. The biggest specific threat is something called prompt injection, where malicious instructions get embedded in content the agent reads. An email in your inbox could theoretically contain hidden instructions that tell your agent to do something you didn't ask for. One story that stuck with me. A computer science student configured his OpenClaw agent to explore capabilities. It created a dating profile on an AI agent social platform and started screening matches without any explicit direction from him. The profile didn't even represent him accurately. One of the project's own maintainers posted this on Discord. If you can't understand how to run a command line, this is far too dangerous of a project for you to use safely. That's not a knock on the project. That's honesty. Give a lot of power to any system. And you need to understand what you're giving. The open source nature helps here. The community can audit the skills, the gateway code, all of it. And Steinberger has been steadily adding safeguards. But go in with eyes open. The Hello PM team used a metaphor I keep coming back to. They called OpenClaw the first airplane of AI agents. Not safe, can't fly far, bumpy landing, but more historically significant than any jet that came after. We're at the start of something. The question of whether AI should just answer our questions or actually act in the world on our behalf. That question is going to define the next decade. OpenClaw is one of the first serious answers. On Valentine's Day this year, Peter Steinberger announced he's joining OpenAI. The project moves to an open source foundation. Sam Altman called him a genius. He appeared on Lex Fridman. The kid who burned out in Madrid is now at the most influential AI lab on the planet, working on the problems he cared about all along. What's interesting is what happens next to OpenClaw itself. Open source foundation means the community steers it. No single company owns it. Whether that leads to a more stable, trustworthy tool, or fragmentation, is genuinely unclear. But the underlying idea isn't going away. Autonomous agents that live in your pocket, act on your behalf, and get smarter over time. That train has left the station. OpenClaw was the first one on the platform. If you want to try it, The install is npm install g OpenClaw. At latest you'll need Node 22 and an API key for whichever model you want. Claude, GPT-4, whatever you use. The docs are at docs.openclaw.ai. Community skills are at ClawHub.ai. If you're not ready to install yet, just star the repo and watch what happens to it over the next 6 months. I have a feeling we'll be making a lot more videos about this. If this video was useful, subscribe. I'm covering AI agent tools every week now because I genuinely think this is the most interesting space in tech right now. Drop your questions in the comments. I read them. Links to everything in the description. See you next one.